This is Heinz Hornung speaking. I'm CEO of Felicitas Customized Engineering, and I will now introduce Felicitas PCBSim, our circuit simulator, which is nicely coupled to CadSoft EAGLE. I have opened here on one hand Felicitas PCBSim in the background, and in the foreground CadSoft EAGLE. And now I will just open the schematic tutorial which ships with Felicitas PCBSim. Here we go. And the tutorial contains two schematics. One schematic is an original circuit with no provisions for simulation, and the other one has provisions for simulation. You won't see a difference now, but I will show what we have to do to simulate a circuit which has no information yet for any simulation. Felicitas PCBSim is coupled to CadSoft EAGLE by just two GUI elements. The first GUI element are the icons on the top here, which allows us to simulate the current sheet or to simulate all sheets in the schematic. The second GUI element is a context menu entry on the component context menu, PCBSim, and this context menu entry is available for all components. So what I'm doing now is I just try to simulate this circuit by pressing the Simulate Current Sheet button. Here we go. And what happens is the schematic has been transferred to Felicitas PCBSim, and Felicitas PCBSim automatically comes into the foreground and shows a tree view of all components it has recognized. It also has a few messages on the right hand side, and we are now looking at these messages. And we have three warnings, one for G1, one for Q1, and one for Q2. The one for G1 says it could not determine the type of component. It ignores it. Now let's see what G1 is. G1 is the voltage source. So Felicitas PCBSim does not yet know what to do with this symbol. Well, it's a 9-volt block battery. We're coming to this in a moment. And there are two additional warnings saying that it does not have a model for the component Q1, which is an NPN transistor. It uses a standard model instead. And the same is true for Q2. So if we look at the schematic, these are just the two transistors. Now the most severe thing is that our circuit has currently no power to work on. So what we are now doing is we assign a voltage source to that symbol, and this is done via the context menu entry PCBSim. And PCBSim opens a dialog which says the component G1 is currently excluded from the simulation. Use change type to change the type, which we are now going to do. And this dialog allows us to assign any simulation type to that component. In this case, we want to assign a voltage source. Press the OK button. And the next dialog opens and allows us to edit the properties of the voltage source, which I'm doing right now. So I'm saying it's a 9-volt voltage source, and I say OK. So this was all I have to do in order to simulate that circuit. I now transfer it again to PCBSim, and we see that in the tree view we have G1 selected, or well, available. The messages have been reduced to two messages, which I will ignore for a moment. And so I will just simulate it. Already done. It has already simulated. So if I want to look at any signal in the circuit, I just select the appropriate component, open the component or expand it, and can select any of the signals of the component, and by pressing the space button I see the current voltage traces. I can do so with any signal in the circuit. So this was a very, very short introduction into Felicitas PCBSim. We have shown that we have a context mini entry for any components, and we have a single button to transfer the schematic to Felicitas PCBSim. And this already allows us to simulate, well, almost every circuit which has been drawn in CadSoft EAGLE.